Most intermediate guitar players think the way to unlock the fretboard is to learn bigger and bigger patterns. More scale shapes, more positions, more ways to play across all 6 strings. But that approach, it's actually the reason so many players get stuck. When you try to think about the whole fretboard, there's just too much information for your brain to turn it into music in real time. So instead of creating melodies, most players just end up running scale patterns. The breakthrough comes when you do the opposite and make the fretboard smaller. Instead of thinking about 6 strings, let's start thinking about 2. When you put restrictions on yourself and reduce the guitar down to 2 strings at a time, the neck suddenly becomes simple enough that you start hearing melodies and building real musical ideas. In this video, I'm going to show you my 2-string tricks that'll help you play everywhere on the guitar. Let's start with one of the most musical things that you can play on 2 strings, third intervals. For this video, we're going to apply the ideas we learn over a simple classic rock groove using the chords G, F, and C. Now the G major scale normally has 1 sharp in it, which is F sharp. But since there's an F chord in the progression, that tells us that we can flatten the 7th and use what we call the G Mixolydian mode. That gives us the notes G, A, B, C, D, E, and F. Now, third intervals are a really simple concept. We start on any note in the scale and we count up to the 3rd note from that starting point, and those 2 notes form a third interval. So we get pairs like G and B, A and C, B and D, C and E, and D and F. Now let's move that idea onto the guitar using just 2 strings, the E and B strings. And we'll play the same pairs, G and B, A and C, B and D, C and E, D and F. Isn't that a great sound? And when I hear how melodic those little 2-note pairs are, my brain immediately starts hearing ideas for solos. For example, I could play just these thirds over the chord progression and it already sounds musical. Check it out. I was lucky enough when I started out to have a teacher that made me memorize thirds all over the guitar neck, and I want you to do the same thing. But remember, we're going to keep thinking about it 2 strings at a time. In this key, with this scale, if we stay on the E and B strings, we'd start with C and E, and then take that idea all the way up the neck. I'm going to play it along with the backing track to make it a little more fun. Let's try it. I'm going to put up a diagram, play it with me. Something important to note, I'm not thinking about scale patterns at all. I'm just connecting little 2-string sounds. Now for good measure, let's do the same thing on another string set. On the G and B strings, we'd start with the open G and B, and then take that idea all the way up the fretboard. Here we go. Again, I'll put up the diagram, play along with me. All right, I think you've got the idea. And of course, I want you to practice on every set of 2 strings on the guitar. But now I want to move on to the really fun part, which is turning these little 2-string ideas into actual musical phrases. After that, stick around because I'll be showing you several other tricks that you can use to create tons of cool sounding guitar licks. Here's a great idea for you to try. We're going to start combining 2 or more third intervals to make up phrases. Let's start with A and C, and then G and B on the E and B strings. We can play just those 2 third intervals and it sounds nice already. And check out what it sounds like if I do just a little variation. We've already got a guitar lick. Now, the next third interval above that is B and D at frets 12 and 10 of the B and E string. And the third interval below it is F and A. And try this cool sounding move. Slide into the note on the B string of each pair and then play the note on the E string. So we would slide from F to G and play B, play G, slide into A and play C, and then we take it on up the neck. It sounds like this. And using that concept, we could create a lick like this one. And here's an even cooler sounding concept. What if we were to bend into the bottom note of each of our two note pairs? For instance, I could bend F on the B string up to G and then play the B note. Bend G up to A and play the C note. Bend A to B and play the D note. That sounds awesome, right? And we could combine this bending idea with our sliding idea to get licks like this one. You could sit around for days coming up with great sounding licks like that one. And again, all I'm thinking about is little two-note shapes on two strings, and then letting my creativity come through. Okay, it's time to move on to another concept that all intermediate players know but don't use as creatively as they could: pentatonic scales. We learn and we practice the 5-box pattern so much that it's really easy to default to just running up and down the shapes when we start trying to solo. But if we break the boxes down to little 4-note patterns on two strings, it gets so much easier to come up with creative, great sounding licks and phrases. Taking away most of the pattern forces you to do something other than just run up and down the strings, and that's a good thing. Let's play through the notes of each box pattern on just the E and B strings, and then I'll show you how to create some licks. And stick around, because in a minute we're going to combine pentatonics with those thirds we learned, and it's going to be awesome. Let's start off with G minor pentatonic because it sounds really tough and bluesy over this particular chord progression. You can play this with me. Pattern 1, pattern 2, pattern 3, pattern 4, pattern 5, back to pattern 1, and pattern 2 again. The first thing I want you to practice is creating a little sequence, and I want you to play it through each pattern. And it could be as simple as this. The point is to get used to creating melodies with just a few notes. And the next step is to start combining two patterns. Let's make up a sequence using two patterns at a time, and let's move that all the way up the neck. We're going to let our ear dictate the note we want to end up on, and you'll notice I might change the sequence by a note or two to make it sound best to my ear. Here's our starting sequence. I'm playing D, F, G, and then sliding into the G at the 8th fret. So now I'm in pattern 2, and I'll play a little sequence that's similar to that first example that we played. And here's what it sounds like if we take that through all 5 pentatonic boxes. Now that's just one little sequence. It was the first one I thought of, and I hope you hear the potential there. There's so many ways we could go with it, and again, I want to stress, I'm just thinking 4 notes, 2 strings at a time. When you put those kind of restrictions on your practice, it forces you to do more with less, and it allows you to really focus. Over our backing track progression, the major pentatonic also sounds really great. It gives us that Southern rock, Allman Brothers kind of sound. And if you don't know this trick, you can take the patterns of the minor pentatonic and drop them down 3 frets and you get the major pentatonic. So if we take pattern 1 of G minor here at the 15th fret, we can drop that pattern down to the 12th fret and we get G major pentatonic. That was pattern 1 of minor, this is pattern 5 of a major. So the patterns are off by 1 number. But let's play through the major pentatonic patterns on the E and B strings. Pattern 1, pattern 2, pattern 3, pattern 4, pattern 5, 1 again, 2 again, and we can just squeeze in number 3 all the way at the top of the fretboard. Once again, let's make up a little musical sequence that we can move through all the patterns. Let's just ascend pattern 1, then slide into the second note of pattern 2. We're going to do a little trill on the E string, then hit the top note on the B string, which in pattern 2 is a G note, play the E note, and then hammer on back to the G. Now, let's take it through all the positions over the backing track and pay attention to how I change the sequence slightly once in a while so that I end on a chord tone. Here we go. Okay, so now we've got our third intervals plus minor and major pentatonic. Now I'm going to show you something that if you're a blues player, a blues rocker, a southern rocker, or a classic rocker, you're going to go wild for. Remember when we used the G Mixolydian mode, we had the notes G, A, B, C, D, E, and F, and we played the third intervals on the G and B strings, and that gave us G and B, A and C, B and D, C and E, D and F, E and G, F and A, and G and B again. And now, of course, the fretboard repeats. But here's a slick trick. Let's identify the thirds that have the notes of G minor pentatonic on the B string. So G minor pentatonic has the notes G, B flat, C, D, and F. That would give us on the B string C, D, F, G, B flat, C, D, F, G, and we're pretty much out of frets. That would give us the triads A and C, B and D, D and F, E and G, G and B flat. And what's cool about these thirds is that they're a mixture of major and minor pentatonic. We can play just those thirds by sliding into the bottom note of each one, and that sounds awesome. But we can kick that idea up another notch. For each one of those thirds, we can add an extra note 1 fret below the note of the third interval on the B string, and we get this sound. What if we pair that up with a major pentatonic lick? I'm up at the 15th position, and we can play our enhanced third, and then a lick from G major pentatonic pattern 1. And then we'll put a cherry on top by finishing up with a minor pentatonic lick. Here are the pieces again, kind of slowly. That was a little variation, and we could just keep on playing around with that, but for now, let's try and play that over the backing track and see what it sounds like. Okay, that's a legit guitar lick, and a big reason it sounds so good is we're constantly mixing major and minor tonalities. Our enhanced third has both B flat and B, which are the major and minor third of G. And then we mixed in both major and minor pentatonic. Here's one more longer lick doing that same thing, and this reminds me of licks that I hear the awesome young blues rocker Marcus King playing. He often makes his way up the fretboard horizontally using small patterns on the top 2 or 3 strings. We're going to start by playing 3 of the third intervals on the G and B strings that outline the minor pentatonic, starting down here at the 3rd position. Then we're going to shift to the E and B strings and play A and C, B and D. Now we're going to slide into pattern 5 of G major pentatonic, pattern 1 of G major, and now we're in position to play pattern 1 of G minor to finish things off. Let's go through the pieces slowly. Okay, so that's the bones or the mechanics of the lick, but once we come up with an idea like that, the next part of the process is to add some feel and some phrasing. I'm going to give this one a go over our backing track. Here we go. Now, we were able to play a lot of great sounding stuff today. And what's amazing, we didn't play a single scale pattern. Yes, we used notes of the scales to make up licks, but that's an entirely different thing. A lot of what we accomplished today was because we put restrictions on ourselves, like playing on 2 strings at a time, focusing on just one concept like thirds or the minor pentatonic. Once we had identified some patterns, because we're dealing with a small amount of information, we were able to easily put together creative musical licks and phrases. This is what you have to do to break that pattern of just regurgitating scales when you try to solo. Yes, we need to learn scales, but we learn them so we can break them apart and then reassemble them in awesome musical sounding ways. I really hope this lesson helps you and it gives you some insight into how the players that we love to listen to come up with great sounding licks, and how putting restrictions on yourself can help you ingrain the fretboard way faster and more intimately, for lack of a better word, than endlessly but mindlessly running up and down 2-octave scale patterns. Don't forget, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Practice hard, but never stop having fun playing that guitar and making music. Check out this video for more ideas on mixing major and minor tonalities. I'll see you next week with another lesson. Bye for now.